welcome to the Fade Route NFL podcast for week 3 of the NFL. Today we're going to talk about the games, the lines, the over-unders, croutons, if we're still calling it that, sink or swim, scratch and sniff, give out a random fact, but I'm also going to welcome in the mayor. Mayor, how are you?
I am fantastic. It is week 3. Week 2 was almost as good as week 1, but that feeling of football is back is not quite the same in week 2, but it was a phenomenal week in football. There are 10 teams that are 2-0, and there are 10 teams that are 0-2. Statistics would say only 11% of 0-2 teams will make the playoffs. So that's one team that's 0-2. Who do you think that'll be?
Of the 0-2 teams,
I have
I
it
would,
between Kansas City or Houston myself.
yeah, it's tough. I almost would have said Dallas, but they pulled off the win just barely in overtime. Um, I had Tennessee winning the division. You know what? I'll go with Tennessee.
Okay. And there are 10 teams that are 2-0, and 36% of those teams are going to miss the playoffs. So we'll say 3 of them.
Okay.
Who's definitely going to miss the playoffs out of those 10 teams?
I guess I'll go with Indy because I got Tennessee winning the division. Like all in on this Tennessee 0-2 team. Cincinnati, they're 2-0? Yeah, Cincinnati. And then picking one more. Is there anybody that's got a smoke screen up right now besides those two teams?
I would say possibly Arizona, but
Yeah, that's a good
I'm with you on those other picks.
that's a really good candidate too. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think the Rams have a good chance of keeping their 2-0 and making the playoffs at this point.
Yeah, I was gonna consider the Rams, but then I was like, no, they're actually a good team with a good coach and good quarterback, so I think they'll be fine. All right. You ready
Now
for the
that
random fact?
now that I've derailed the podcast, let's go.
No worries. That was an interesting conversation. So, random fact, do you know what the oldest cat in recorded history, what age they lived to?
Is this in cat years or in human years?
I guess you could do it either way. I'll do the quick math if you want,
Well,
but I
then,
have it in.
yeah, no, hold on. Let's see if I can guess this. I would say in cat years, it's probably about 502.
All right, hold on. I'm gonna have to do the math. We're going with 7 years as a cat year.
Sure.
Okay.
So then my math is way off. I would have to go back to like
All right.
200.
Think about it again. What do you think it is? It's
Well, I would
seven
say probably
years.
about 40 years in real life, so probably about 280 in cat years.
You're actually very close. It was 38 years, so it's 266, I guess, in cat years. You could go a little higher because supposedly they breach, adolescence or young adulthood after 1 year. So, maybe that's a little higher in cat years. I don't know. But you were very, very
Imagine being
close.
that cat and always wanting to go outside and be inside at the same time. For
Yeah.
36 years, you're stuck with that.
And my cat opens doors. I don't know, like we've got those handles where you can just pull down on it. And my cat's always opening doors, the garage, every door that's closed, he opens it. So
I think our cats hate the outside and they're traumatized for life because there's been 3 instances now where we've had to put them in a cage and leave for a hurricane. Uh,
mm,
and so much so that as soon as they see that cat carrier, I literally have to rip them out from under the bed. And, but there's no other choice because it's like they're very indoor cats.
yeah, my cat likes to go outside, but I don't. We had a incident with our other cat. We got these two cats together, and the other cat went out one day and never came back. So I'm a little afraid of this cat. Maybe at some point this happening. So I like to keep him inside, but it's not always possible because of having children and my mother-in-law. It's not always possible. All right, we'll move on from cats. If people have cat-related questions for us, you can put that out there. I'm happy to answer
Especially if
any
it comes to
cats.
the Panthers, the Bengals, or the Jaguars.
Right. All right, so let's look at Thursday night football. That will be tonight as you're listening to this. Buffalo is favored by 12, is what I saw it as today. Again, if you have a different line, always let me know. The over-under is 49.5. We already talked about this, but obviously Mike McDaniel's on the hot seat, the very, very hot seat, the hottest seat um, since Urban Meyer, I think, maybe. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, this is probably going to be a one-sided contest, unfortunately, and I don't foresee Mike McDaniel being the coach tomorrow morning. I think they're going to spend 10 days and pick up their offensive coordinator. It sounds like he's the guy to be. It's like it's already a done deal. They might as well just fire him now and let the OC run the ship tonight and see what he can do in his first game. That's probably going to be a loss. Miami will have to play perfect football in order to stop the Buffalo Bills from winning at home.
Now, obviously, that 12 is a high number, but is that too high? I mean, too high to take that number, but is it really too high in reality?
Uh, no, but I'm not going to take the number. But I mean, it it could be a 27-3 victory, and you know,
Yeah,
no one would be
sure.
surprised.
The players might not even be too motivated for this game, so that would be a big problem for Miami as well. The over-under is 49.5, though, so they are expecting some scoring. I don't know if they're expecting it to be 40-10 or something like that, but um, I don't know. That's a surprisingly big number for, I guess Buffalo's defense hasn't been able to really hold anybody, that much. So maybe that's what they're thinking with that over-under.
Yeah, 38 to what? 17? No, I'm sorry. What's 12 points? It would be like 28 to 14. So that's yeah.
It'd be more like 28-21 because it's 49.5.
Yeah, but they're
But
also
that's
favored by 11, so it's more like 30, 35, 24. That's a weird
something like that.
score.
Oh, yeah. We'll talk about weird scores later. All right, the 1 p.m. games on, or the first slate of games, depending on where you're listening to this. The 1 p.m. games, the New York Jets at Tampa Bay. I saw this line at 6.5, the over under at 43.5. The question is, with Justin Fields out with a concussion, is Tyrod Taylor possibly a slight upgrade? Just in terms of a passing game, he's actually probably borderline a starter. Like if he was on the Saints, I think he'd start.
Yeah, it's fascinating that that's a fascinating line. It seems like it's going to get blown out of the water, but my crouton from last week, I thought the Bucks were going to be a big scoring game, and it wasn't. It was a gritty game. Bucks pull out the victory. So I think it's going to kind of be the same thing here. Bucks are going to win. I don't think it's going to be a blowout by any means. That 6.5, I think, is not enough, or is going to be too much, whichever way you want to look at it. Uh, the Bucks will win, but it won't be by a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're a touchdown better, unfortunately. I mean, the Jets. When you say the Jets, it sounds like a bad thing, but they've actually been able to put up points, so I wouldn't touch that either. Uh, Houston at Jacksonville. Jacksonville losing a heartbreaker with Joe Burrow out. That was a tough loss. And now they get this Houston team that's a disappointing 0-2, and Jacksonville's favored at home by 1.5. The over/under is 44. What's up with the Texans?
Well, they had a tough first couple of games. That's what happened. You know, they, they opened up against two playoff caliber football teams, and they lost both football games. They need to just kind of get back to what they were successful at last year, playing that great defense, and which they done. They given up what 20 points and 14 points, so the defense is getting their job done. The offense needs to get back to scoring the 20, 25 points game that they can get to. So that they'll straighten out. They'll right in the ship. They've got the Jaguars and Titans the next 2 weeks. Big matchup in the Ravens after that, but they'll bounce back this week for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly it's possible. We wouldn't give up on Houston, but I thought their offense was going to struggle this year, and they're really missing Tank Dell. Had a horrific injury last year, and I don't know if he's ever going to play football again. But he would be able to stretch the field for them, and then that was a big part of I think what made their passing game successful. So I think they're struggling at running back. They're struggling at receiver a little bit. So they've got to get those things figured out. I'm not taking this game though. This might be the one where the Texas Texans offense comes alive. So we'll see. The Rams at Philadelphia. This has got to be the big game of the early slate of games, right? This is the big one everybody's going to want to watch.
Yeah,
And
I'm sorry, I wasn't sure you were ready for me there. Yeah, this is gonna be a great game to watch. 44.5, I guess, is the over under, you said?
yeah,
Yeah, it seems like it could be 60. I don't think there's gonna be a lot of defense to be had, but it's gonna be a shootout for sure. Gonna see a little bit of tush push, gonna see a little bit of McVay and his offense, and Matt Stafford throwing the ball all over the field. Jalen Hurts doing what he does. These are two of the probably best teams in the NFC right now. So they're gonna be a great game. I don't even know who I would pick to win right now.
so the line that I saw was Philadelphia minus 3.5.
Yeah,
Um,
that's the home team advantage, so that's not really saying much of anything.
yeah, I don't think so either. The over under is 44.5. So if you're expecting a big score, that might be the play. But I don't have any interest in that. I'd rather just watch the game, not worry about the score.
Yeah, I agree with you.
All right, Green Bay at Cleveland. Cleveland, a home dog. We're gonna see the next four games are home dogs. They're plus 7.5 at home against Green Bay. The over/under is 41.5. This Green Bay team looks really good. I mean, legitimately good. I don't think it's a smokescreen. I think this is a really good team. 7.5 is a high number though. Cleveland kind of stuck around against Cincinnati. So I don't know about this one. You have any thoughts on this game?
Uh, so far, yeah, Green Bay's been, I think, one of the surprise teams in the NFC. The way they've come out, played great football so far. Their run defense is second only to Cleveland's run defense. Uh, so that's pretty interesting. But I think the Browns have problems all over the field. Much to Joe Flacco trying to hold it together on yet another football team. The Browns are excited about their uniforms rolling out this week. Green Bay is more focused on getting to 3-0 and moving on.
You mentioned those run defenses. I guess that's why this line is so low, 41.5. Maybe the both teams are going to be kind of one dimensional here, and that's why they're not expecting a lot of scoring. Pittsburgh at New England. New England is another home dog, plus 1.5 at home. The over under is 44.5. Big stats on Rodgers over the last few years. When he gets pressured, he is a much different quarterback than when he does not get pressured. So basically, the key to stopping him is getting to the quarterback. And, that seems sort of obvious, but there are definitely players who can work around that, quarterbacks that are good under pressure, and he is not. So, I, I don't want to touch this. I think Pittsburgh's better than New England, but I don't like the game at all. Any thoughts on Pittsburgh at New England?
Yeah, this is going to be one of those. Both teams are like middle of the road on everything, so we don't know what to expect. I wouldn't expect a lot of scoring, honestly. I mean, it could be a 2017 game for, the most common score ever in NFL history. Uh, I guess I'd favor the home team in this case, but I don't expect anything spectacular out of this game. But I'll pick New England at home.
All right. Indy at Tennessee. This is a very interesting game. Tennessee is a home dog, plus 3.5. This Indianapolis team, I don't know if you feel like they stole one from Denver. I kind of feel like they stole one from Denver last week, but that uh, that game basically came down to a 60-yard field goal, and then it was missed, and then there was that leaping penalty that we saw so many years ago. And then then Tennessee or Indy got a shorter field goal. They made it. They won. The line is Tennessee plus 3.5, as I said, and the over under is 43.5. Do you think the Colts are a smokescreen, or you think that they're legitimate contenders in the AFC South?
Well, their defense hasn't given up a lot of scoring so far, so that's a great way to get ahead in the NFL for sure. Uh, you know, regardless of what you are what your record says you are. They're 2-0. I think they are going to be able to solidify their position in the AFC South this week with a win at Tennessee. Division games are always difficult, but I think they're going to get the job done, and I think they could end up winning by 10 plus points.
Yeah, and we'll see. The thing that I find interesting about this is we're gonna see if they're for real. I know Tennessee hasn't been great, but hanging around versus Denver is pretty tough in Denver with a rookie quarterback. Um, you know, this Tennessee team's certainly not as good as I thought they might be, but I think it's a good test for Indianapolis. If they win this one big, then I think we can start taking them very seriously. Atlanta is at Carolina. Carolina, another home dog, +5. Over under is 43.5. Don't have a lot of interest in this game, but I think Atlanta's good enough to win. Whether +5 is a good number or not, that remains to be seen. You have any thoughts on Falcons at Panthers?
Yeah, Atlanta just needs to get the job done to prove that they're here. The Panthers are not a great football team right now. Atlanta has the advantage all the way across the board, and their defense is second in points allowed and second in passing right now, and ninth in rushing. So this defense is going to definitely do their part, probably all the way through the season. As soon as Michael Penix Jr. can put together some touchdowns in the air, and Bijan Robinson can hold down what he's been doing, this team is going to be a force in the NFC this season. They're starting to figure that out already.
Yeah, definitely the way they looked against Minnesota. I don't know whether that was all Minnesota, but it looks like they can get a pass rush on the defensive side. And as you mentioned, those skill players, quarterback, running back, even wide receiver, even some Kyle Pitts sightings. So I think the Falcons are headed in the right direction, as you said. Cincinnati's at Minnesota. Minnesota favored at home. Um, the over under is 41.5. You have Jake Browning, Bengals versus JJ McCarthy, Vikings. Another game I'm not really interested in, but what do you think about Cincinnati at Minnesota?
Yeah, it's. Do you think Minnesota would be favored if Joe Burrow was starting for the Bengals?
No.
Or would it be like the 1 point, Minnesota favorite? Yeah, I don't think so. Um, Jake Browning has the opportunity because he still has all those wide receivers and all those weapons that Burrow had, but he also has that same offensive line that can't stop the wind. So he's going to be in threat and running for his life for the entire game. I think Minnesota's, JJ McCarthy's beat up a little bit himself, but I think he's going to play. Maybe, maybe not. Hard to say at the moment, but I would say Vikings are going to be able to get this done at home. I think they're going to be able to do just enough and get there.
Yeah, so it is an interesting phenomenon when the backup comes into a game. They generally do pretty well. This is just my anecdotal evidence, but they generally play really well. And then when they're forced into the starting job, that's when they tend to struggle. The way Minnesota looked last week, though, I don't know if I could bet anything on the Vikings at this point. So I'm gonna stay away from this. I think just based on last week, I think if Joe Burrow didn't have turf toe, I think we'd be looking at like a Cincinnati plus 1.5 or something like that.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, Las Vegas at Washington. Washington favored by 3. The over under is 44. I think this is going to be actually a very interesting game. I think both these teams are good. They're not great, but they're both playoff contenders, I would say, at this point. So, what do you think about Las Vegas at Washington?
I want to bring up an interesting conversation about quarterbacks when we're kind of done with everything, a little sidebar conversation. But this is going to be a fascinating game for sure. I think Washington and Jaden Daniels, he's already thrown 3 touchdowns, hasn't thrown a pick yet. They're going to get this done at home. I don't think, I think Las Vegas so far is going to live or die by Geno Smith at the moment, and he already thrown 4 interceptions on the season, so he's going to have to play perfect football in order for Las Vegas to win. I don't see that happening. I see the Commanders getting this done at home.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on that one. We'll see what's coming up in croutons, though. 4 p.m. games. Denver at the Chargers. That one a big game, probably the biggest of the afternoon, late afternoon games. So the Chargers are favored by 2.5 at home. That's a tasty number there to take Denver on, but I think this Charger team has definitely showed they're better than Denver. The over/under is 46. I think this could be possibly a low-scoring game. It may not get to 46, but do you have any thoughts on Broncos at Chargers?
Yeah, to say it's the going to be the best game of the afternoon games, I would possibly disagree with that statement. However, the this is going to be a great game to watch up until 4:25 p.m. Denver and the Chargers, this could end up deciding the division a couple months from now. That one game, week 3, you playing a division opponent. Uh, I don't know who's going to win this game. I don't know. They've both got great qualities. They've both proven that they're going to be able to compete with anybody in the NFC or AFC this season. I guess I would favor the home team, but they're not going to score 40 points on Denver.
And a lot of people said this, but Bo Nix does not look as good as he did down the stretch last year. So, I think they got a QB advantage in LA. New Orleans is at Seattle. Seattle minus 7.5 at home against this New Orleans team that really actually had a chance against San Francisco last week. So I don't know if they're as bad as everybody thinks they are. I think I talked about this last week. But them, I don't know, 7.5 is a big number. I don't doubt Seattle being a better team overall, but I would be afraid to put any money on this game. The over/under is 41.5, so they're expecting a slugfest here, maybe an inept offense in New Orleans. But you have any thoughts on Saints at Seahawks?
Yeah, this isn't going to be. I don't think it's going to be a fun game to watch, other than being in one of the fan bases. I just don't see a lot coming from either team in this game. New Orleans is going to be battle season long, and Seattle is always that team that they win by 3 points, or it's the fourth quarter and it's boring because it's 7-3, or 20-17, or it's always close, clunky, and just it's always raining in Seattle, and maybe that has something to do with it. I don't really know, but boo hoo, I'm not watching this game.
I should say the mayor not a big fan of the Seahawks.
Duly noted.
All right, Dallas at Chicago. Chicago a home dog at +1, at least the last time I saw it. The over/under is 50.5. I don't know the Chicago team is going to score a lot of points. I know Dallas's defense hasn't exactly been great, and they did kind of lose their best player, defensive player at the beginning of the year, but that's a lot of points. That's what stood out to me here. I don't know if you have any thoughts on the Cowboys at the Bears.
Well, they did get rid of their best defensive player, but they're going to be able to pick up four rookie draft picks in round, pick 27 and 20 for 2 years in a row, and possibly have a chance at a really good defense 3 years from now. So I understand the logic in that. The Bears have given up 39 and a half points a game, 32nd in the NFL, and the Cowboys have given up 30 and a half points a game, 27th in the NFL. So, yeah, this is going to be a scoring fest, and whoever has the ball last will win. Whoever throws more interceptions could still win. It's going to be just, if you want to watch a bunch of scoring, it's going to be a fun game. But I would say I'd give the advantage to Dallas.
Yeah, I almost put Dallas in croutons because I'm like, I like them at -1 here. I think they're going to beat the Bears, but I'm not going to actually pull the trigger on that one. I assume this is your game of the week. Arizona is at San Francisco. The 49ers favorites at -2. The over-under is 44. Mac Jones will be starting again for San Francisco. We briefly messaged about Arizona. They're they're bad at keeping the lead at the end. Say that as kindly as I can. There's no reason to think they're going to do that against the 49ers in Santa Clara. Do you have any thoughts on the Cardinals at the Niners?
Well, lots of thoughts. This is one of the only two undefeated versus undefeated matchups of the week. The other one complements of the Rams and the Eagles. So the NFC West is going to change a little bit of ranking after this week with three undefeated teams. At least one of them is going to have a loss. Either way, San Francisco got it done in New Orleans. They pulled it out at the end. Arizona has gotten it done so far. I think San Francisco is going to win the game. It's not a done deal that Mac Jones is going to be playing. Brock Purdy may be able to go. I think that's just a smokescreen, though, for just to throw a little bit of doubt for the defensive coordinator out in Arizona. Uh, there's almost no reason to put Brock Purdy in if you're 2-0 at this point. Let's see if you can get a third victory, and then you play on Thursday night football. So if you get an injury, to Brock Purdy, in the first quarter, now you're danger in something where you can give him the next 5 days off, and you guys got 10 days off, and he can fully heal. Whether you're 2-2 or 4-0 at that point, you can move forward for the second quarter or the second quarter of the season.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think we're going to see Purdy out there. And I think San Francisco is a significantly better team than Arizona. Arizona with 2 wins, but I think they're one of the most fake teams, 2-0 teams that we've ever seen. Sunday Night Football, not a good game. This,
I'm sorry.
the, that's all right. The Chiefs at the New York Giants. Giants home dogs +6 at home. The over under is 45. Casey's in a bunch of these primetime games, and I think that's a mistake. I don't like watching this Chiefs team, but we're gonna see them a lot. They're gonna be in a lot of prime time. So I don't have any thoughts on this. I don't, as I said, like the Chiefs, but the Giants. I don't know if they're gonna come through and win too many games this year. So, any thoughts on Chiefs at Giants?
Uh, yeah, I mean 6 point underdog at home is that's embarrassing. But for the reason for that is because they're bottom ranking of the league of almost every stat there is. So I think the Chiefs are finally going to get a win. 0-2, they've had two tough games, two tough opponents to start. But I think they're going to right the ship starting Sunday night. But they could end up winning 10-0, and I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I agree. And we that's not a great game. But Monday Night Football is a great game. Detroit at Baltimore. Anybody that can tune into this game should tune into this game. I mean, obviously it's a potential Super Bowl matchup, although these neither of these teams have gotten over the hump a lot. And Detroit, not at all, and Baltimore, not in a while. So we'll see if one of these teams stands out a little bit more, or if this comes down to a field goal at the end. But it's the biggest over under I think we've seen this year. I mean, I'm pretty sure 53.5 was what I saw. The Baltimore Ravens are favored by 4.5 at home. Lions at the Ravens. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, this is probably going to be one of the better games of the week, like you said. Um, it seems like the Ravens aren't known for defense anymore, and Detroit's not known for defense. It's just, I think, when the offenses are that good and can produce that much, it's impossible with the rules the way that they are that the defenses can do the things they need to do to get the job done. I think it's gonna be a great game. I would expect a 30-27 game. Oh, that over is tempting, but I think 52.5 is a great number. I would have to say I'd favor Baltimore at home.
Yeah, I don't know which way to go with this. It's just gonna be a fun game to watch. So I'm not. I don't want to put any croutons on that one. Speaking of croutons, that's where we are. We're gonna stick. I'm personally gonna stick with calling it croutons until we come up with something better. But it's essentially dollars. We give ourselves 1,000 to start, and then we see who can make the most throughout the season. Last week I had Green Bay -3 and Philly -1, and I think I won both of those. So I'm 4-2 on the season overall. Uh, what about you?
Well, I mean, that's like a humble brag question to ask. I had four bets last week. I was trying to get back to even, which is the best gambler advice I can offer. Always try to get even. I had Washington trying to beat Green Bay +3. That didn't work. I had Tampa Bay at Houston with an over of 42.5, and it was 39. So I thought there was going to be some scoring in that game. I was really wrong. I did have Detroit -5.5 against Chicago. That seemed like a no-brainer to me. And then Los Angeles Chargers -3 out in Las Vegas and City. Second home away from home for every team that goes there. That one was pretty easy. But I finished flush for last week, but I'm still down on the season. And, I'll have to start getting some of those spicy meatballs thrown in there because I'm going to have to get ahead.
Yeah, I think if the hot streak, well, let's a hot streak for me. If the hot streak continues this week, I might have to start upping my croutons a little bit. I've got two for 50 each. What about you? What do you have this week?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to my strategy of two this week. I was looking up and down the lines, and there's a lot that seem like Vegas has got that line perfect. So I think I found two gems though.
I'll give my first one, and then you can go after that. Washington -3 against Las Vegas. Again, I talked about this earlier. Washington has looked good. I wouldn't say great, but I think maybe this is the week they kind of break out and we see how good they can be. So I have 50 croutons on Washington -3.
Yeah, that's an interesting pick. I must have missed that one because I may have done that. My first pick, I'm going to pick on poor Tennessee. I think Indy is, while they may be pretenders, they may be for real. I think they're going to be able to take that -4 against Tennessee and get that job done for sure.
Yeah, I think that's fair. My other pick is I'm taking your 49ers. I know I can do that because you're not going to bet on your team, but so that's gonna be a different bet than yours. San Francisco is -2.5. I'm taking them over what I think is a fraudulent Arizona team for 50 croutons.
I do like that pick, and I highly recommend it to everybody. I will not bet on the 49ers myself because I don't feel like I can remove all emotion from those picks. So me giving the advice of taking that boat might not be the best advice in the world at all. However, I'm going to go with Philadelphia -3. The Rams are coming into Philly. Going to be a tough environment to play in, going all the way east. 1 o'clock game. These are all the recipes for the team that's probably better and is still better because we are talking about the reigning Super Bowl champions. Will get the job done.
Yeah, that's a tough one though. You got two good teams there, but I can agree with the home team advantage for this one with the Rams traveling east, and that's an early game, so that makes sense to me. Let's move on to sink or swim. We're both perfect in sink or swim so far. Again, this is sort of like a sorry, my cat's now trying to get involved with this podcast.
What pick did she not agree with? That's the question.
Sorry, everybody. I don't know. Just in general, cat does not like the podcast, or maybe the cat likes the podcast too much. But either way, I was saying sink or swim is like a survivor pool, except you don't get eliminated. You just get the points based on what week it is. And as I said, we're both perfect so far, if I can remember correctly.
Yes, and I think I just found a new twist that's too late for this year, but we can add to sink or swim.
All right. Do you want to tell me what the twist is?
So if you pick wrong, you lose that amount of points as well.
Okay, I think that's good.
Because that way, if you pick wrong in week 16, it's like extremely I mean, I don't know if it's really makes sense, but just popped into my head.
All right, yeah, we can try that next year. We'll look at the numbers and see if that would be fun or not, because I don't know if that would mean you're essentially eliminated if you got one of those losses in a late season, but we'll see. All right, so we're both perfect this week. I've got Atlanta. I'm taking them over Carolina. What is your sink or swim pick?
Yeah, that's a pretty bold pick, but not really. You know, we both have Carolina is probably one of the bottom performing teams, so that pick makes a lot of sense. I got to get my pick in today because the game's going tonight. I don't think there's any way in hell that Buffalo is going to lose this game tonight. And I'm going to use my good teams at the beginning and keep my strategy and find those diamonds in the rough in 15, 16, 17. And I'm going to stick with that strategy until it doesn't work.
Yeah, it's one way to go. I've been a little more, um, I guess, out on a limb with some of these picks, but there's no right or wrong way to play sink or swim. All right, what about scratch and sniff? So I've eliminated 4 teams over the last 2 weeks. I think you've eliminated 6, and I'm gonna eliminate 3 more this week to bring my total up to 7. So I only had Miami scratch last week, and then I had the Giants, the Panthers, and the Titans. Oh, sorry, that's my that's this week. I had the at Chicago, New Orleans, and Cleveland. Uh, I've got the Giants this week. I've got the Panthers, and I'm gonna give up on my Titans so I can get some points there, even though I thought they were gonna take the division. But so my picks this week: the Giants, Carolina, and Tennessee.
Yeah, I'm with you on all of those, honestly. I've got Carolina, Tennessee, Chicago. I picked in week one. The Giants, Cleveland, and New Orleans in week two. And this week, even though I picked them to make a playoff run, I am knocking out the Miami Dolphins because they're going to be 0-3 after tonight, unfortunately. And the New York Football Jets. Coincidentally, all of these teams are 0-2 right now, and only 10% of teams will make the playoffs at 0-2. So I still have faith in the Texans and the Chiefs, and I don't. I think everyone else has a chance still at this point.
Yeah, it's tough with that AFC South because it's ripe for the taking of that division. I think Tennessee might be the worst team in the division, but the other teams aren't necessarily great. So we'll see. The thing is, it's very early in the season, obviously, and we could see teams fall or rise a lot. Things change quite a bit over the course of a season. So, but I think we're onto something with all these teams. I don't think very many of them will be making the playoffs.
Yeah.
All right, did you have something else you wanted to talk about at the end here?
Yeah. So there's been a few times now where quarterbacks change football teams and all of a sudden they become successful where they draft a guy and he just doesn't work out. And I'm beginning to think that it's the quarterback coach and not necessarily the quarterback because all of these players have the skill set of being drafted in the NFL and they can't be wrong that many times. And I mean, just for instance, Baker, Indiana Jones, as they call him now, Geno Smith, Kirk Cousins. I mean, a lot of these players, I mean, we go as far as saying Matt Stafford and Jared Goff even have just changed teams and it's worked. So is this really a coaching problem and there's less few good quarterback coaches in the world than there are good quarterbacks? Or is it, am I just misinterpreting that maybe?
No, I think you're right. And there was a bunch of the boy genius type thing. Seeing all those guys on the sideline, back in the day, the coaches that are now coaching their own teams, and those guys were known to, for their quarterback whispering ways. So I think you're right about that. Um, but I don't know what the fix is because if a lot of the head coaches are the really good quarterback whisperers, then they've got too much else going on. These young quarterbacks need a lot of time, and so that's why they have a specific quarterback coach, of course. So yeah, I don't know what the answer is to that, but I think you're onto something.
Yeah, other than paying quarterback coaches head coach money and them not wanting to have aspirations to being a head coach themselves, you're going to move on and I mean they've got to find a better way for some of these quarterbacks because when you draft them it's a 5-year commitment or it's a 5-year backslide.
Yeah, that's actually a good idea, but I think it's hard to find those types of guys that like, Steve Spagnuolo type, who's just happy to be the defensive coordinator. It seems like everybody, as soon as their team has a good year, they're like jumping on the opportunity to move on. So yeah, it would be paying them a lot more, for sure would be a factor, but I don't know if you could find the guys that don't want to be head coaches. It's an interesting strategy, though.
You know,
All right, did we have a scoregami last week? I don't think we did we?
I looked and it didn't seem like one jumped out, and I looked at, but not that I'm aware of now.
Do you expect one? Like, how do you know how often it tends to be, or is it just all over the place? It's just very
Uh,
random.
I don't think it's that often, honestly, because when you really look, some of the scores that are still possible to happen, a lot of them are just impossible. Meaning, like a team that scores 4 points. So that score, the losing team would score 4 points. That scoregami is probably almost never going to happen at this point because just two safeties alone in a football game is weird. All the threes have been covered, all the zeros have been covered, the sevens. So, unless there's a blowout score of, 50 plus points, that's not until we get into scoregami territory at this point. So it just seems unlikely, maybe once or twice a season.
Yeah, and I think with some of these offenses, that's possible. Baltimore, Detroit, Buffalo come to mind. But yeah, it's rare, but it's fun when it happens.
Absolutely.
All right, I think that's it. Are we done?
I think so.
All right, then, for the mayor and myself, thank you for listening, and we will talk to you next week about week 3 and 4.